Greetings, this is Atlanta Soto Zen Center. I'm Tarian Roshi Abbott of the center here in Atlanta Training Center for the Silent Underwater Network. This morning we have each second Sunday morning we do an interview of what we call Zen VIP, very interesting person. May not be too important, but at least interesting. And we'll be interviewing Niall Livingstone this morning. He is our current Eno in the sense that he comes in early Sunday mornings and leads a cleaning team, clean the center of Zendo in particular, preparing for the Sunday morning schedule of service, which for those of you who are online and don't know or seeing this online, uh, 9 o'clock sitting starts on Sunday morning. We sit 3 half-hour periods till 10:30. We do a short service about 10 minutes. And so by 10:45, we're ready to go online with our Dharma dialogue. First Sundays, we have a guest speaker from outside our lineage, which John Hinman, who's online here tonight from Rome, Georgia, Berry College, organizes and does the logistics on our guest speakers. And we invite guest speakers from any lineage outside of our own. And if you have anybody you would like us to invite, please let John Hinman know. Second Sundays, we do an interview with a person from within our own lineage. We consider them very interesting persons, just that if you come to Zen practice and you stick with it, that alone is interesting in today's world, where there's so little consistency in our life and so little reason to be consistent with anything. So today we have the good fortune of having a volunteer, Niall Livingston. Niall, I'd like you to bring the other chair over and maybe sit.
Yeah, sure. Can do that.
There, sit beside me so I can play Stephen Colbert. You guys, if you're here.
Like right here?
Yeah. Oh, closer. Yeah. So we can see you on camera.
Sure.
So now you've been with us for how long, did you say?
I started coming to the center regularly in October of last year, so it's been just over a year.
So any change in your perspective from the beginning? What did you expect when you first came?
Well, I'm not sure what I expected. So to back up a bit, I had sort of been passively interested in Zen for a number of years, but wasn't really able to kickstart a regular practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I was born and raised here in the Atlanta metro area, and I found out about the Atlanta Soto Zen Center in I think about 2019. Came a handful of times back then, but it just didn't stick at the time. And then, years of the pandemic and not being able to calm down and not being able to meditate on my own, I was like, okay, I think a community would be really good. So that was kind of what drove me to come back. And I'm not sure how I would say how things changed over time. I feel like maybe when I first came here, I felt like more of an imposter, kind of like a tourist. And now that I've been here for a while, I kind of
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. Now that I've been here for a year, I think I feel a little bit more like an actual part of the Sangha.
To grab your tea.
Oh yeah, sure.
So somebody else, please take over serving. Landon, maybe you can serve tea next round. So take us back before.
Sure.
Back to your childhood, not quite white picket fence. Tell us a little bit about how you were raised, and
Sure.
we'll go into your education.
Sure. Let's see. So I was born and raised here in Atlanta, specifically out in the suburbs. I live in the Smyrna, kind of Marietta area on the northwest side. My parents are both former like punk rock kids. They both dropped out of high school and got GEDs and had kind of a rough upbringing. So I feel like that's had its imprint on me in terms of my anti-authority and everything else. But they're really good people. I wasn't raised religiously at all. I have some extended family that are Christian and things like that, but didn't really have an interest in Zen or religion at all for a long time. Went to school, got interested in programming and computer science specifically. I ended up going to college out of state. I had been born and raised here and had only spent time in Georgia. So I really just wanted to break out and see something new. I went to a small college up in Massachusetts, out countryside. Spent 4 years there, and then the cold was too much. So once I graduated, I came back home.
What was your major?
Computer science. Um,
Yeah, I was in Chicago and I was pulling myself along up the sidewalk on a rope so we put out, in the winter. Sort of pull yourself along. I thought, this is a little too hard. Just to get across town, you spend
yeah,
several hours just getting across town.
yeah.
And then the other people you were to meet may not have been able to make it. I had an opportunity to come here in 1970, so I took it.
Right. I've only ever met people that have fled the north to come down here. I've never met the opposite. Southerners fleeing.
Well, there's a huge diaspora of black people,
Yeah.
which Elizabeth or Isabel, she was his last name. She was here for a while.
Mm.
So, wrote about in The Warmth of Other Suns, the diaspora north
Oh,
after construction, after all that,
right.
civil rights movement.
Right.
But that's unusual. They say air conditioning is what saves us.
It's hard to imagine people living here in the pre-AC times.
Yeah.
It must have been difficult. So,
So do your parents' family go back a long time in the South? They come from the North.
I think it's fuzzy on my mom's side. I think my dad's side has more or less been in this region for a while. My grandmother got really interested in genealogy and was tracking stuff for a while, I think. Um, we've sort of been in this area for a bit, but it gets fuzzy the further back you go.
So anything else about your family upbringing you'd like to mention?
I think the religion thing is an interesting point for me because I actually, despite not growing up religious, I think growing up with extended family that were quite religious and growing up in the South, which is quite a sort of default religious area to grow up in.
Bible Belt.
Yeah, I think I developed a pretty like cynical attitude towards religion in general early on and was quite vocal about it. And I think it really took me some time and some experiences to encounter things like Zen and to kind of see the value in something that wasn't, I'm very kind of science-minded person. I studied physics a lot in school, so shifting away from that kind of like overly scientific, overly kind of materialistic way of looking at the world to something more spiritual, I think.
Interestingly, people who are raised Catholic have a similar reaction to it, even though it's on the other end of the spectrum, Christianity. So jump ahead a little bit to your education. What is it about EIT that you find interesting? What do you do now?
Yeah, so
professional.
Yeah, I'm basically a web developer, a glorified, software engineer. I do front end stuff. So if you're using a website or an application, all the stuff that you see as a user, I'm responsible for that side of it. I've been doing that since I graduated in 2015, and I'm not really sure how I fell into it. It's kind of by mistake. I fell in love with programming when I was in high school. I had the opportunity to kind of do it.
What did you like about it?
I think the instant sort of like feedback of being able to create something from nothing. Like you're starting with, just literally ones and zeros and then you're able to kind of communicate with the computer in this like weird language to tell it what to do, and seeing the program kind of come to life as you're working on it, I think is really cool. I've realized that I don't really like things like research that require years of investment before you see any kind of return. So I think that's one of the things I enjoyed about programming.
Yeah, or immediate feedback. That's what I liked about design, because it was all media studies, and you were getting instant feedback, especially if you did something wrong, as you went. So what's it like? I'm not a programmer. I'm pre-digital. When I was in a design company, drawing board, everything was paced up, working very highly mechanical art, graphics, product design, all very hands-on, sort of immediate. And people really hated having to switch to a keyboard and mouse, because you had that feel, that tactile feel for the drawing something out, planning the scale, and so forth.
Yeah.
And That was a wrenching transition in the design business. And I took to it pretty well, uh, but I have no idea the underlying mystery. It's all invisible.
Yeah.
The back end,
Yeah.
the zeros and ones.
Yeah.
So what's that? Maybe you could talk about how that relates to, this may be a leap, how that relates to Zazen for you. In
Interesting.
Zazen, maybe we're dealing with something similar. We're dealing with the back end of our consciousness.
Yeah, yeah. That's an interesting thing. I think like one important caveat is that like for anyone that works in technological fields, you can't really understand the full stack, right? Like I specialize in front end, so I know a lot about how web browsers work and how to paint things on a screen and animate things and stuff, but there's a lot of stuff beyond kind of the realm that I deal with that is it might as well be magic to me. Like how computer hardware works, how people program databases and servers, all that kind of stuff is, so I think even for people that are specialists, technical specialists, it's like we sort of have to be comfortable with a lot of ignorance. Like we have to sort of delegate to other people. We have to be okay with that. And it strikes me that I think something similar is going on Zazen and like in our Buddhist practice. Like we are trying to grapple with, what's the best way to say this? We're trying to understand things that are right in front of us, but that might not be apparent unless you're really paying attention. Um, So you develop, I guess, like a specialization. We're sitting on our cushion and we develop the skill or the ability to stare at a wall for 90 minutes and tune into
Mhm.
perceptual phenomena and things like that. But there's still a deep and kind of pervasive mystery, even if you get better or worse at certain aspects of it. I feel like there's still so much that you don't understand. We have to be kind of comfortable in our not knowing. This is something that came up in one of the recent talks. It's kind of
Very,
being,
very zen.
yeah, yeah,
Randy Earl was here for a while.
yeah,
As you know, he's been here on practice periods from time to time.
yeah.
And he was at IBM. He's retired a year or more ago.
Mhm.
But he was in a position of hiring people for their teams. And one of his criteria was for a hire is that you have to be comfortable with ambiguity.
Yeah. That's remarkably difficult. I find it especially difficult. I'm a very like orderly person, and I think that feeds into being interested in technology and all this kind of stuff and cleaning. um, but the trick with Zen is it seems like you have to become really comfortable with ambiguity and not knowing, and that's still a struggle for me.
Even Master Doga is even quoted saying something like that. He said, "At last we are left with ambiguity."
Yeah, it's easier said than done.
So I think Zen may be especially well positioned to appeal to and be helpful to
Yeah,
current generation, your generation
yeah,
especially, who's so involved in IT.
yeah,
We had to learn it the hard way in my generation because it was pre-digital, Bauhaus approach to design, creativity, et cetera, all made a lot of sense. But it was all immersion in
Mhm.
media.
Mhm.
The media are all tangible,
Yeah.
like painting, chalk,
Mhm.
stone, wood,
Mhm.
other metal, glass. The whole first year foundation in the Bauhaus tradition of the Institute environment is just immersion in those clay, plaster, casting processes, firing, firing clay, trying to make clay do things that it didn't want to do, and that kind of thing. But when you approach the medium that you're working in, it seems to me, whoever thought we'd all be ambivalently connected to keyboards for the rest of our life and mouses,
Yeah,
it's a couple stages removed. And when we're sitting in Zazen, the medium is your consciousness.
right.
So it's very direct. And I think you have maybe the same ambiguity problem, that
Yeah,
the distance between what we think our reality is and what Zen tells us it is and how to get there
yeah,
means we have to somehow bridge that gap.
yeah.
And so maybe with repetition,
Mhm.
which is music, art,
Yeah,
design,
yeah,
anything, dance, Zazen is based on repetition. Maybe with repetition, you as a programmer
mhm.
just get to the point where it's automatic.
Yeah. I think it is, and I think not hopefully this isn't too much of a tangent, but we were talking about kind of technology and how all this factors in. So I was born in '93, so I had enough of my childhood that was almost pre-digital. It wasn't quite pre-digital, but it's pre-internet, pre-social media.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember, playing outside with my friends. I remember playing really, really bad video games on old consoles with bad graphics. Like um, we were just a lot more limited like technology had a more limited role in our lives. And growing up in the time that I have and entering into a technological field for my work, um, I'm not anti-technology, but I think I'm not as like pro technology as other people
Mm-hmm.
with my same background necessarily. I think
Well,
it's a tool, but we're maybe overindulging in it a bit.
my first computer that I bought was a gray screen green type CPM system.
Yeah.
But the history of technology, especially media, is a very uh, salient area of
Hmm.
study in design. And uh, Marshall McLuhan, you may remember back in the 40s, 50s, you weren't born yet, but if you ever went back and researched, medium is the message. He did a lot of analysis around the effect of television. At that time, television was the new thing that had come along and
Yeah.
invaded our space. And every time there's a paranoid kind of reaction to new developments in media, including AI right now. AI is the big bugaboo that everybody's worried about.
Yeah.
And but the history of media shows that every medium that's been quote unquote displaced, like the invention of movable type was considered to be a threat. The Gutenberg revolution was considered to be a big problem, and so forth. It's the old technology has always found a new niche. The old medium's always found a new niche. It hasn't gone away.
Yeah.
It's adapted and moved into a different
Yeah.
place, kind of like a cultural evolution.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So personally, I'm pretty positive about all the new developments, AI and so forth.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I have these conversations with friends a lot about kind of what the future of the internet looks like, future of AI, all these things. And I think it's easy, there's a lot of negative, sensational journalism out there that, wants you to believe that all this stuff is just going to be a huge problem and nothing else. Or the people that are selling this stuff want you to believe it's going to be the future and that you should invest now. It's hard to find a kind of middle way. I think I share a similar perspective to you, which is just that every time something new comes along in society, whether it's a technology or a cultural idea or anything, like we'll have people eagerly adopting it, maybe a little too eagerly. They'll, take it to excess. We'll see all the worst sides of it, like we are with the internet right now. And then maybe the pendulum will swing back in the other direction, and we'll kind of figure out how to situate it in society in a like more balanced way, something like that.
I gave a talk, the Wichita group on song of harmony in the community. They were having personality issues and so forth. Last month, and Harold, the practice leader there at the Wichita Center, tried to talk through an AI,
Yeah.
and it did a condensed summary of my talk,
Mm-hmm.
and he sent it back to me and sent it to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I'll check it and see if I agree.
Mm-hmm.
But and Randy is threatening to put all of my written work, all the work can be accessed into an AI.
Mm-hmm.
What do we call them these days? Avatar.
Yeah.
So it can ask senseis. Even if I'm dead and gone, you can still have a conversation with them.
Wow. Interesting.
So during that time, your first exposure to Zen certainly was not the Atlanta Zen Center.
No, it wasn't.
You must have found a book to read or something. Tell us a little bit about your first exposure when you first the Oxford picture. You see the tracks in the sand, right? Tracks in the mud. What was your first experience?
The first in the series of the Oxfording pictures for me is quite embarrassing. I don't mind being transparent with this story, but it's not glamorous at all. So I was in my senior year of college, and I was going through kind of a rough patch. I just exited a pretty
Senior in college, huh?
Yeah. I mean, nobody's really happy as a senior in college, but I just left a relationship of about 2.5 years that was not really healthy, and was just trying to find meaning and happiness and all this kind of stuff. And there was this young woman that I was interested in romantically, and she was like, "Hey, I'm going to this meditation group. you should come. I had no interest in meditation at all. I was like, it's all woo-woo weird stuff to me. But I was like, oh yeah, of course I'll go with you. So we go, and I was really lucky. It ended up being a Rinzai Zen teacher that was leading this just completely free meditation class for college students on the campus. I ended up going back through the rest of the semester just because I found it so interesting.
Hmm.
Zen to me, like really, I guess when you grow up in a place like the American South with kind of a cultural milieu that's very Judeo-Christian, I think you have a very fixed notion of what religion has to look like.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
when I started learning a little bit about Zen, it really sort of broke open that idea of like what religion or spirituality can be and how it can fit into your life. Um, I, didn't have an easy time sitting initially. I still don't really have an easy time sitting, but it was interesting enough that I stuck with it. And then after I graduated, wasn't really part of a Sangha, wasn't really studying intently. I did come across a book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by Shinya Suzuki, which
mhm.
a lot of people sort of attribute to
Is it
their.
still in Massachusetts?
I was back home at this point. I had come back home to Atlanta. I had started digging into Zen just conceptually a little bit and started reading Suzuki's work. And I think, like a lot of people, they describe it the same way. Like I was reading it and it just kind of made intuitive sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was nothing mysterious about it. There was nothing kind of like confusing. There was a lot of deep meaning that I didn't grasp at the time, but it started making sense to me. And then again, over failed years of trying to meditate at home and falling out of practice with it, and going through the pandemic and everything, I decided to come here. And the way I describe it is that the community here really is my current practice, like the extent of it.
Yeah, yeah.
I come and sit on Sundays, and I participate in the cleaning, and I think it's
Think back to that first experience of coming here and try to
yeah,
remember what it was like.
yeah,
You had some background with the Rinzai
yeah,
class,
yeah,
so give us your first impressions if you can remember them.
yeah. It's an interesting one. So it would have been 2019 when I first came.
I mean, this is a little weird for most people to walk into a
Yeah,
place like this.
I guess I was a little intimidated. I probably have a strong sense of imposter syndrome, not just in Zen, but like in other areas of my life as well. So I remember coming here and everyone is completely welcoming and friendly. But the place is very sort of austere and simple, and it's very quiet here. And I'm a little uncomfortable with awkward silence. So I came in and I was like, do I belong here? Am I intruding? Um, and
I don't belong here. I'm a creep.
right, right. Radiohead's one of my favorites.
Weirdo.
Um, so I think I was a little intimidated at first, but I think people's sort of sincere sort of intent to come here and practice together, I think just it's like this intangible thing that's just kind of in the atmosphere here. And I think coming back, time and time, you kind of just pick up on that. So that was the biggest thing is that I kept coming back and I didn't have any crazy experiences in a negative, light. So I just kept coming back. Yeah.
So what would you say kept you coming back?
Yeah.
It wasn't simply the atmosphere, it had to be more.
Yeah.
Something.
I think, I've got my own sort of like personal reasons for practicing or studying Zen. Um, and then I've sort of got the Sangha dimension of it. So when I started coming last year, um, I had had a bunch of sort of upheaval in my life and things changing and stuff, changing kind of patterns of behavior. And I felt like my mind had finally settled down enough that I could really commit to having a sitting practice. So that was sort of my. Is anyone familiar with this notion of like an Odysseus contract? Have you heard of this? So Odysseus is the Greek,
Mm-hmm.
hero in the Odyssey and the Iliad. There's a point where they're sailing through this sea that has these sirens that are, if you hear their song, they'll lure you to your death. You'll, go overboard and drown. So Odysseus knew that he wouldn't be able to kind of overcome his temptation in the future. So he asked his fellow sailors to tie him to the mast and to plug up all their ears with wax and not listen to anything he had to say until they were through the dangers.
Never remember that passage. No.
So there's this notion that sometimes the best thing we can do for ourselves is pre-commit our future self to something that we know is good for us, even if our
Mm-hmm.
future self isn't going to want to do it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a way in which me coming to this center initially and then me continuing to come back is sort of like kind of keeping myself honest and keeping myself engaged in the practice when I would say like my natural kind of curiosity hasn't gotten to a level where I can very easily practice at home and read about Dharma for hours on end and all that kind of stuff. I'm still very much a beginner. I think that the Sangha is like protecting the very like fragile ember of practice that I have going on right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Shoshin Beginner's Mind was one of Suzuki's messages. Matsuoka Roshi wrote about it too. Suzuki made the point that in the mind of the expert, there's no room for innovation, for anything to change because you're an expert. But in the mind of the beginner, the mind of the beginner, there's plenty of room.
Right.
So we want to sustain and protect the beginner's mind.
Yes.
It relates to the don't know mind, the admission that we don't know. We know very little. What we do know is probably not that useful. What we don't know.
Right.
Etc.
I can appreciate that both as someone that read Suzuki quite a lot. Thank you. As well as I do have a background in martial arts as well, and my sensei was very insistent on teaching us that white belt was basically the best rank because as a beginner, you're getting to experience everything for the first time, and you can make plenty of mistakes. You will make plenty of mistakes, but you're not really responsible for them. Your seniors and your teacher are responsible for them. The higher you get up in the rank, the less curiosity you have towards everything, and also the more responsibility you have towards your mistakes. So it's actually quite good, I think, to be a beginner. I take a lot of pride in being a kind of a newbie when it comes to Zen and Zen practice.
It's a better attitude to take. Each time you sit down, you're mounting the bench experiment again.
Right.
You're not restricted by whatever happened before. It's just fresh.
Yeah.
Your reference to the Ulysses and the having himself tied to the mast reminded me. We had a workshop, Thursday workshops is afternoon, 7 o'clock, where we go into more advanced approach or detail on posture, breath, attention. Savannah was attending. We did, last one I did what we call Zen bondage. So we brought in,
Quite literally.
brought in all these things that you can use to tie yourself up with. And you can, for instance, if you just tie around your legs when you're sitting like that, it supports you. It holds them in place. And, it's
Interesting.
more comfortable or something. Different approaches.
Sure.
And,
sure.
Ian, who's fixing our lunch snack now, was there, and he said there was a famous master in history who had people tie him up, sitting in the posture that he tied him so he couldn't get out of it.
Interesting.
And they'd come back after a certain amount of time and untie.
Maybe I need that. That sounds really nice.
Well, it's a similar idea. It's like,
right.
I know that I'm going to try to get out of this posture. I'm going to try to quit doing this. So please tie me up so that I can't.
Yes.
And same thing with you.
Yes, and that reminds me. It reminds me of when I first. This actually ties into the martial arts. Some of the hardest workouts I've ever done, like physical workouts, have been in that martial arts class because when you're working out on your own, unless you're a very driven person, unless you really like the masochism of exercise, most people kind of phone it in. You're not gonna commit yourself entirely to the thing. In a martial arts class, especially one that's run, very like kind of diligently or arduously, everybody's sort of encouraging each other is one way to put it, or kind of keeping each other honest. And so you're not holding back at all. And I found a very similar experience when I sat for the first time with other people in that Rinzai class, is that in that class, we were all facing each other. So there was almost this more like peer pressure where if you're sitting there and fidgeting while you're doing zazen, or if you have, or looking around the room, it's going to be very obvious to everybody else, and it's going to be distracting to them as well.
Yeah.
So there's something about, even though we face the wall here, I have the same experience where I don't know how fidgety I would be at home if I tried to sit for 90 minutes, but I know that when I'm here, just the presence of other people helps me keep myself still.
I told the story of going to Japan in 1989, and the guy I was traveling with, he had been there before, and he told the people we were visiting that I was his Roshi, which a very embarrassing thing. So sitting with them in the Rinzai group, I couldn't move. If I moved, I would embarrass myself, my teacher, and I was ready to kill them.
Right.
So yeah, the martial arts and Zen are closely, intricately interrelated. Masaoka Roshi is black belt judo. And Shinjin Mike Goldman, who will be my successor here, is a black belt judo. And he said something similar about the belt that you said. He said, the white belt, the brown belt, the black belt, he said, it's not so much an indication of rank. It's that he says, if I get in the ring with another black belt, I know I can go full out, full tilt.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hurt him. He's not going to hurt her.
Yeah.
They're not going to hurt me. So, but if I get in the ring with a white belt, I could hurt them or they could hurt me because they're simply not, trained enough.
Right.
That's a very different take on rank.
Yeah, and my teacher really emphasized or de-emphasized rank, I would say. Promotions were not something to be aspired towards. You weren't supposed to be climbing this rank ladder quickly. It was more about mastery over whatever level you were at.
Yeah.
And also the understanding that even when you get to, like I eventually did get my first degree black belt some number of years ago, but unless you're in the martial arts, most people look at a black belt and say, oh, that's a great accomplishment. But the white through brown belts are just the student ranks. So when you become a black belt, all that means in most systems is just that you're no longer completely naive. Like you know something, but there's still many degrees of learning that go beyond that. I think it's the same in Zen.
And they call them like first
Dan, yeah, first Dan, yeah, as opposed to the Q ranks.
So it's the same in Zen. We have a hierarchy, but it's an inverted hierarchy. I'm the abbot, the guiding teacher here, and there are priests, brown robe priests, there are black robe priests, and there are disciples, and there are initiates, and there are members, and there are newcomers. So we have all these so-called ranks. But the newcomer person walks through the door for the first time, the highest rank, because as far as you know, they're Manjushri, Buddha, the teacher. You don't know who they are. So everything shifts gears toward the newcomer. We're giving I wouldn't say sophisticated, but we're giving a very sort of detailed or Dharma talk.
Yeah.
Some kind of newcomers happen to show up Sunday morning. I instruct all of my students to orient their talk to the newcomer.
Yeah.
So whatever you're going to be able to say in the audience that you had with senior people who've been here for years, you have to get this message through to the newcomer.
Right.
And so we have a very similar orientation.
Yeah, it's a really interesting subject. When I was reading Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, there's a section where Suzuki's talking about bowing and the importance of bowing as a practice. And he talks about how, sometimes we bow to people that are above us in rank. Sometimes we bow to people below us in rank, older than us, younger than us. It doesn't matter. And he really made the point of saying, if a teacher that cannot bow to his student cannot bow to Buddha. That's the line.
Right.
It's this really radical, sort of anti-hierarchical notion that is especially surprising. Coming from a society like Japan that is even more fiercely hierarchical and kind of status-based than America is.
Yes.
So.
But in sesshin means unify mind, shin means mind, sets means unify or expound the mind. Sesshin is extended retreat, 7 days, 10 days, however long. Yeah. And in the tradition, in the monastic tradition, the hierarchy is flattened. So the abbot, the senior priests, and all juniors and so forth are all equal. Everybody's equal. Everybody does the same thing. Everybody sits the same way and so forth. They had positions assigned, and they probably didn't change that. But during sesshin, it was like all bets are off. Everything is flattened out. And so I think of the bow as like that's the great equalizer. I recognize your Buddha nature same as mine.
Yeah.
Rank or experience may still count in teaching at least, and but it flattens everything out. And I think of Zazen that way. No matter who you are, where you come from, what rank you have out there, and I wish some of the high-ranking politicians would come and when you come and
Yes.
practice Zazen, you know, it's
Yeah.
just another vegetable in the stew.
Yes.
But we're all trying to do the same thing, which is ironically a form of non-doing. Something cannot be done actually, but just returning to original nature and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot. For a lot of people, they would look at it as a lot of humility, but in Zen, it's not humility at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just realistic, practical.
Right. Right.
So let's see, where does that leave us? So now you're practicing here.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us, can you differentiate between what you expected when you came here and what you found when you came here?
Yeah.
And were there some negatives? Were there some positives?
Yeah. It's interesting. I really you gave a talk, I think it was last week, where you talked about how Zen in particular is quite different from a lot of other religions in the sense that the types of people that it tends to attract are like loners or people that are at the very least not joiners. They're not people that really aspire to be part of some super tight knit community. And yet, nonetheless, we have this paradox. We have a community and we support each other. That was something that took some getting used to, I think, for me early on. On the one hand, I think if I walked in here and it felt super tight knit and cultish and weird, I would have left immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand,
Some people get that impression.
interesting,
Mistaken.
interesting. Having spent some months here and seeing people come and go, like I came and went in the past, it that really kind of clarified for me that like it's a very fluid community of people, and everyone's playing different roles, and everyone kind of has their own idiosyncrasies and stuff. Um, and I think also it was encouraging to, I guess, see that kind of everyone's working through their own stuff. I think nobody comes to Zen because their life is going perfectly, right? We're all dealing with important kind of matters philosophically or personally, socially. And so seeing other people and getting to talk with other people here and kind of learn about what they're going through and kind of compare it to my own life, that's been, I think, very like humbling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can also extend that into what traditionally was called pilgrimage in Japan and China. Once you had sort of been approved by your teacher, you would often be sent out on pilgrimages. You go test your understanding. So you'd visit different monasteries and address. They had formal ways of doing this, where you're on pilgrimage, and you would express your understanding to his teacher, or the head priest that day, or whoever happened to be there, and they would have Dharma combat, go back and forth. You try to sort of confirm to yourself, do you have this right? And if you only have one teacher and you never have exposure to anybody else, it can be limiting. So it was formalized as a pilgrimage. We call it the tiptoes of training. You're walking on foot, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
But and in the past I've had difficulty with personality issues with students and misunderstandings, and which is all part of the part of the game. That's the way it works. But in many cases where there was a distinct problem, they had never gone anywhere else.
Yeah.
They had never practiced anywhere else. This was it. Where it became apart from another little issue. So if you take it out to the outreach level, you could say then we recommend to any of our people especially who are interested in the formal path of becoming a disciple, priest, and so forth, to go visit other places. I've been to at least maybe 24 Zen centers in this country and around the world. And I've seen what they're doing, and I've seen how it differs from what we do and how it's the same as what we do.
Yeah.
And once you get that kind of perspective, you don't sort of take all this so seriously.
Yeah, I think that's a tricky thing is kind of seeing through the idiosyncrasies of any particular sangha, any particular teacher or, method, and trying to see through to the like sort of the meta level of what we're trying to do in our Zen practice. And, I've been obviously lucky enough to have a couple of teachers at this point, read, from other teachers whom I haven't met. And yeah, I think it's a process of kind of unlearning a commitment to just one way of doing things. It's ultimately trying to build a flexibility.
A form of tunnel vision.
Yeah, for sure. So
And we've had people fall into that trap and even come here and sort of criticize us for the way where they came from.
Right, right.
So I recommend that way.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
as things are now, you're married?
Yeah, I am. My wife and I got married in December of 2023. So coming up on
Congratulations.
a few years.
So we say, drink the same wine, but not from the same glass.
Yeah.
And we've had
Right.
couples come here from time to time who were very committed, and then they had some personal problem. They separated and it interfered with their practice.
Yeah.
So I've always encouraged people to, couples,
Hmm.
uh, don't let zazen or your
Yeah.
practice
Yeah.
meditation
Yeah.
become a wedge issue between you.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, your practice is yours, your partner's is their practice.
Yeah.
And it's gotten to be awkward, like people are trying to continue to come and sit, but trying to make sure they didn't show up the same day their partner was here.
Yeah. I can see that.
So they say the Dharma of married life or the Dharma of
Mhm.
relationships is the most difficult of dharmas.
Mhm.
So I
I
don't expect you to respond
no, no,
with anything personal.
no, it's an interesting question. I think what I'll say is that I think Zen has taught me a lot about how to be a good husband, and I also think that being married has taught me a lot about Zen. Like conversely, I think there's a lot of parallels, and maybe that just speaks to sort of the universality of what Zen is pointing at, what it's trying to teach.
You say if your family is happy with you, your Zen is working.
Yes. Suzuki Sensei has another thing that I really like from his book. He says, there's a saying, a good husband is not a good husband. A good father is not a good father, meaning somebody that thinks that they're all that and that they're doing great is probably slacking off. And somebody that maybe thinks they're not so good is maybe making a more earnest effort. So I like to say that I'm not a very good husband just because I'm trying to be better.
In the martial arts, they say the greatest student tries to master the smallest detail.
Yeah.
So it's always something.
Yeah.
Sensei used to say, beware that one little thing you allow yourself.
Mm.
That's what'll get you.
Yeah. I like that.
So in Japan, the Matsuoka Roshi was an exception. His father was his first teacher. His father was also a priest. And that's not uncommon in Japan, and for all the sons in the family to become priests. But typically, they don't try to deal with their own son. It's too close. So they'll
Interesting.
send their son to practice with somebody else.
Yeah.
It's gnarly, the karmic entanglement of
Right.
family life. It's very gnarly.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I not my dad is not a Zen teacher, but he is a web developer, and so I actually worked with I worked with him for the first year after I
Yeah.
graduated, and it was fine. But to your point, family can sometimes be too close. Sometimes you need separation between different aspects of your life.
So
So,
if you have any recommendations for newcomers, people
gosh,
approaching Zen, this generation I really feel for because my life was a whole lot simpler
yeah, yeah,
at that age, 30s, 20s, 30s,
yeah. It
a lot clearer cut.
right, right. Yeah, I think society was maybe simpler in certain respects. It's tough. I know everybody comes to Zen for different reasons, and so I wouldn't want to give some sort of cookie cutter answer to anyone because maybe why I kind of came to Zen and what I need from Zen is different. Um, I think you know, there's a lot of, I think Zen is fundamentally like a process that requires an incredible amount of patience. You do get benefits, early on if you're really stressed out and anxious and you sit, it will get better, it will get easier. I'm sort of at this point in my practice where I'm realizing that it's a very long tail of refinement. I think a lot of people use this metaphor of like zazen being like cultivating crops, right? You can fertilize the soil, you can plant the seeds, you can water it, you can create all the perfect conditions for plants to grow, but you can't actually force the plants to grow themselves. They have to do it spontaneously. So I think it's very much like that. I think coming in with very little expectation, just being curious about what's going on any given day when you're sitting, and I also, in terms of doubt and skepticism about the practice, I definitely had my fair share of that early on. And I think one thing that's really reassured me is not only seeing the same people come back year after year that are priests that are newcomers, their teachers, etc. But also just being in touch with how old this practice is and our lineage going back, literally thousands of years. I have to feel on some level that there's got to be something going on here if it's stuck around for this long, if people have bothered to transmit it. Um, so I don't know if that really reads as advice, but I think it's just be patient, be curious, and yeah, just find how it works for you specifically.
There's an old Zen saying, keep your doubt at a keen edge.
Yeah.
Your doubt will cut through all the delusions. Don't take Buddha's last words for it. Don't take my word for this. Check this out for yourself.
Right.
So good.
That's something I really appreciate. I think about Zen is that it's so do it yourself. I think when one of the first conversations we had, and Dokusan, you were talking about how what we're doing in Zen is really radical in the sense that we're training people to become truly independent. We're trying to train people to completely think for themselves, to be their own kind of caretakers and stewards in the context of their own life, and then hopefully that kind of has its effects on the social levels, on personal levels, all that. I think it's quite different, and I think it requires a lot of courage and patience on the part of the people that are studying this. But I think it's a really, really interesting thing, and I wouldn't be continuing to come back and sitting if I didn't believe in it. So.
Independent thinkers and interdependent actors.
Yeah.
This is the opposite of what most political partisanship is about.
Right.
You want to be a dependent thinker, thinking the same way, and you want to be codependent in your activity.
Right.
And so we're almost radically anti-political.
Yeah.
But our position is not to tell people what causes they should join or what they should do.
Right.
Our position is to help them get free of any confusion about it.
Yeah.
And then we expect them to go out and do the right thing in the right situation.
Right.
Hopefully.
Right.
Good. So before we open for questions and answers, do you have anything we didn't talk about?
It's a good question. A fun fact about me is that I've been studying Japanese for quite a while, and that creates a really interesting point of intersection between sort of that study and then my study of Zen practice.
Ohayou gozaimasu.
Ohayou gozaimasu. It's really interesting. It's one of the more difficult languages you can try to learn as an English speaker, just because of how linguistically separate they are in terms of like the history
from different planets.
Yeah, completely different. I still like to think of myself as a complete amateur when it comes to Japanese, but we really like visiting. My wife and I got the chance to go last year, and
is she Japanese?
No, she's not. Neither of us are, but we went to Japan in November, and one of the things we got to see was Eiheiji Monastery in Fukui Prefecture.
Were they putting the bamboo out for the snow?
Not quite yet. It hadn't gotten that cold. But so for those of you that don't know, Eiheiji is one of the two Soto sort of training centers in Japan, where they train Soto priests and whatnot, to be in this formal tradition. And you can go there as a tourist. It's, you pay an admission fee and you go through, and there's monks doing things. It's very controlled kind of environment. That had a really profound, I think, experience on my kind of interest and commitment to Zen. That happened only about a month after I originally came here. I started coming here last year, and seeing sort of the really, really deep and old history there, seeing it put me, I don't know, it kind of put me in a really interesting frame of mind where I was realizing that I was part of this tradition that was so much older than me, that came from the other side of the planet, and these people were continuing it on in their own way. And it was really profound. I think, for anyone that's really interested in Zen and continues down this path, and someone that has the opportunity to go see Eiheiji or a similar place in person, it's hard to put into words kind of how it.
They make it very easy, welcoming.
Yeah.
The first time I went there was in 1989, and the second time was 2015. We're doing a video documentary on Matsuoka Roshi. And especially the food at Eiheiji changed so much. They now serve you, and it's like a very big deal.
Cool.
In those days, we were two Americans and two Japanese lay people, and there were only four of us, and they trained us one-on-one with the karaoke meal.
Right.
Now it's like a big cafeteria type restaurant.
Right. Right.
In some ways, it's better.
What's interesting about it to me, not AAG specifically, but more kind of like language study or culture study. America is this big melting pot. We have all these cultures and languages here, and we have all this opportunity for cross-cultural exchange. Zen in America is really the product of a really fortuitous cross-cultural exchange between us and Japan after the war. Um, it's really interesting, I think, from so this trip that I took last year was the first time I had ever been out of the country. So in a lot of respects, I'm still very sort of provincial and very American in a lot of ways. And
Well, they had to be shocked.
when you start learning a language like that, you're also learning the culture, and you're kind of learning an entirely different way of thinking about the world, about relating to other people. The customs are entirely different, and I think it's similar in a sense to learning about Zen because it's turning your whole worldview on its head. All the ways that you think about things, all the assumptions you bring to the table about society are, kind of gone. So I think that's also like I think travel in a weird way is analogous to Zen practice. There's this position of being a beginner and throwing yourself into something that's completely unknown.
It also throws a bucket of cold water on a lot of your mythology
Yes.
around what the situation is like there.
Yeah.
So forth.
Yeah, it does.
So wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you very much for agreeing to the interview.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
and thanks to everyone for enduring a completely unprepared talk on my part. I appreciate it.
That's an interview. Let's start in the room here, and John, we'll ask you if you have any questions as well. We can start with you, John, online. John Butler. Any question for Niall? What's your Dharma name?
Holgate, which means get rid of it, throw it away.
How do you spell it? H-O?
Yeah, so in Japanese it gets romanized as Hoge, but it's actually a long O, so it's like Holgate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've certainly never been to Japan. Um,
It's not required.
It's not required.
I have learned a second language pretty late in my adult life, though, in which I decided to throw out everything I had at Spanish and actually teach it now.
Wonderful.
I used to, when I lived in Atlanta, teach English to kids that came from Spanish-speaking countries, and now it's all in its head where I teach Spanish now. But do you always find that, learning a second language, especially when it's like challenging, kind of late in your life,
Yeah.
does it kind of have that direct experience that Zen does? I have no idea about the martial arts at all. I suppose that might be. Do you think there's parallels between the three, maybe? In terms of just how direct it is, like with language, it's like you know that word or you don't in the moment you need it.
Yes. Maybe this is a theme with me because I'm also a musician. I play music, and with music, with language, with martial arts, with Zen, there's a lot of immediate feedback when something's not working. And maybe I need that for some reason. I don't like having delayed feedback. But yeah, this is the case, I think, with language in particular. When we went to Japan in November, my language skills are very amateur. I can basically hobble through very basic sentences and speak broken Japanese just to get us from one place to another. But it was really humbling and kind of exciting when I was able to connect with somebody, even over a single word or a concept that I understood that somebody coming over there with no language experience might not have. So it was, on the one hand, the failures are very immediate and obvious, but the successes are just as immediate and rewarding when you create those bridges between yourself and other people that the work has to be done, right, to create that connection. So I think that's one of the things I enjoy. But it surely is related, I think, to Zen and the immediacy and kind of the directness of it. And also, um, if anyone's familiar with this like Dunning-Kruger phenomenon, there were these two researchers back in the day that wanted to see how people uh, felt like they stacked up, in terms of their skill towards something that they had been practicing, and they wanted to see how this changed over time. So, complete beginners versus people kind of in the middle versus experts. And there's this really interesting curve that comes out of it where it turns out the complete beginners know they know nothing, and so they're very, cautious. But then once there's a saying, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Once you get about a couple dozen hours into practicing something, you think you know everything. And so you have this spike of confidence that's completely not rooted in reality. I've already been through that with all my various hobbies. I've been through it with Zen and Japanese and all this. So now I'm on the other side of that, where I know that I don't know anything, and I know that it's a very long road ahead towards mastery. So you have to be patient with the long tail. I think all those hobbies have that in common.
Now we have computer apps that'll translate for you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you don't have to do it yourself, but
You might want to join our music group we meet on Saturdays.
yeah. I've talked to Dan about it actually, and
Good,
I'm looking
good,
forward to it.
good. Yeah, in-house. Anybody?
Thank you.
First, I just want to say you were at the beginners night that I first showed up here,
That's right.
and you helped make this a very friendly and welcoming place. So I just want to say thank you
I'm happy
for
to
that.
hear that. Yeah,
Because it was you and Taizan
that's
over
right.
there.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, as far as friendly, yes, absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
You also, I liked that you mentioned tying yourself to the mast. You're sort of doing this for your future self,
Yes.
which I totally agree with. And I feel like, do you feel like your role that you've taken on is also part of that, maybe part of that rope that's tying you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it very much is. Sensei approached me some number of months ago and asked if I would help out kind of in this capacity. And
I think you're already doing this.
I was kind of already doing it, but not really. I like cleaning, so it comes natural, I guess. But I have a tendency to say yes to things, even when they don't necessarily fit into my life. But I also, I do derive a lot of benefit. Like, I'm the kind of person that I feel like having that structure and expectation from other people really helps me stay committed to something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a big part of that. And yeah, I don't know how else to say it. I think it is a big part of that. I'm actually like remiss to give it up to somebody else, because then I don't, want to lapse in my practice or my duties. But speaking about being kind to your future self, it's like I can imagine a version of myself years from now that is maybe further along in the practice, and it's really grateful to me of this year for committing to all this stuff and making myself come back, even if I can't really see what that looks like or see what the path forward looks like. But yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
There's a little bit of, I don't know if it's psychology or sociology involved, where if you ask someone to do a favor for you personally, I mean, do you a favor, it's not just an imposition on them, not necessarily felt as an imposition, but they appreciate it because you recognize that they can do this,
Mm.
right? So they say, if you want to make a friend, ask them to do you a favor,
I like that.
which seems contradictory.
It's the Benjamin Franklin effect. Yeah.
Interesting.
Good old Ben.
Smart guy.
So in this context, it's called service to the song of the community. So the highest level of service is something like administration serving on the board.
Mhm.
We're very careful about inviting people to serve on the board because it turns out to be the third rails where people really burn out. It's like, I didn't come to Zen for that. And but it's Buddha Dharma Sangha. Buddha is time on the cushion. Dharma is dialogue. They're trying to understand the Dharma. Lots of us said we teach each other Buddhism.
Yeah.
And he said cleaning is cleaning the mind.
Yes.
So there's a personal dimension of everything. You clean, it's like you're cleaning your mind. I like to keep it empty around here,
Yes.
kind of thing, where we leave no traces. We put back where found. When we leave, we try to make it look as if nobody's been sitting here.
Yeah.
So the next person coming in feels invited. If it's a mess, if the cushions are everywhere and everything is squashed and piled up in the corner,
Yeah.
they don't feel as invited. If everything is dusty and dirty, you don't feel welcome.
Exactly.
So the cleaning is both for yourself and for others, like everything ends in. There's no self in it.
Yeah.
So it's inappropriate in a way to thank people for what they do for Zen.
Yeah.
Because they're doing it also for themselves.
Yeah.
So it's an anomaly. It's kind of a different thing.
Yeah. There's two interesting threads there. I totally agree with the cleaning analysis. I actually have the outline of like a blog post or a talk about how cleaning is this like incredibly deep metaphor for our Zen practice. And maybe at some point when it's actually finished, I'll talk to Sensei about it.
Translates to home as well.
Right. It's
Home practice.
it really, yeah, it's a very interesting practice. And yeah, if you live anywhere, you have to clean, you have to pick up after yourself. So it's something that almost
You
everybody can
actually
do.
don't.
Well, you don't have to. You don't have to, but you'll live with the consequences of not doing it. The other thread is about, you mentioned burnout and people kind of overcommitting to things.
Yeah, burnout.
I had this experience when I was in college. One of my like extracurriculars was working at our like radio station. And I started out having a show and then over time was asked to join the board and take on all these responsibilities. And my inability to say yes got me to a point where I just
To say no,
completely, or sorry, yeah, my inability to say
Open
no.
Word says the same thing. I can't say no, so you have to talk to this.
Exactly, exactly. It got me to a point where I was just totally burned out and I had to leave. So I'm trying very carefully not to do that with the Zen Sangha here.
Burnout, my way of thinking, is a misinterpretation.
Yeah.
You miss, like you think if you don't do this, it won't get done.
Yeah.
Like you're such an important person.
Right. There's been weeks where I haven't been here and some other people handle the cleaning and I come back and the Zen Center is always still standing next time. So I've taken a lot of solace in that. I don't need to be here for things to get done.
Good lesson.
Yeah.
So what's your name?
Alex.
Alex. Any comment or question?
I don't think so.
Oh.
Not right now.
And say your name again.
My name is Ying,
Yeah.
How do you spell?
Ying.
Yun? Yin?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Ying, I'm
What-
from
what-
China.
Okay.
I think I'm a beginner. So I have one question.
Sure.
So how do you learn all the theories? I think it's difficult. Do you talk to someone or do you read? How do you learn all the theory?
The theory of Zen?
Yeah.
That's an interesting part of the practice. So some people come to Zen just because they want to meditate and they just want to do that and they don't care about all of the complicated Buddhist stuff behind the scenes. And then maybe some people have the opposite and they come in and are interested in all the theory and they don't really want to sit. I think you do need both. For myself, the Dharma study that I have done up to this point has mostly just been reading really accessible books from other teachers. I mentioned Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind from Shunryu Suzuki. That really helped clarify a lot of what Buddhism is trying to teach us. And then, I think
So would you recommend my books?
I was getting there. I absolutely would. Sensei has also written 2 books. I've read the first of them. I'm working on the second. And, I think that's I really like the role of the teacher in the Zen tradition because it's almost like the safety mechanism for making sure that the interpretation of the Dharma that you get is not off or like bad, right? Because what we're studying is very subtle and complicated to understand, even if you're somewhat smart. It's easy to get wrong. And so having a teacher or having a mentor that can help interpret and help you sort of come up to your own interpretations of this stuff, I think has been really helpful. I admittedly haven't done nearly as much Dokusan with sensei as I would like to, but I think that can be helpful.
Dokusan is an interview.
Yeah, like a personal interview. But I think one of the benefits of sensei's books is that they explain all of these sort of esoteric Buddhist concepts as well as more practical considerations about how to sit, how to find time for sitting in your life in a very modern and kind of accessible way. So those would be like, yeah, some of the things that I've done. But admittedly, I'm still very much a newcomer. We're probably more similar in terms of our newness than you realize. So.
But for example, in the original Frontier, to make the analogy that Buddha Dharma Sangha, Buddha is time on the cushion, actual experience, right?
Yeah.
Dharma is the written record, reading about it, talking about it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Sangha is community practice, right? Yeah. Service to the community and so forth. So most people think, read about Zen, I'll learn about it, right?
Yeah.
And that's true, but unless you're sitting, it's not going to sink in as much. So I liken it to the documentation that comes with a computer application. If you're not using the application, you can read the documentation, but it's not going to make any sense or it's not going to make as much sense as if you are using the application. In Zen, the application is Zazen.
Yeah.
This is the application. You're sitting, meditation is the application. So the documentation can help you with workarounds, running into glitches, things like that. And teachers are like online techies. We're like the supposed experts who can help you even more if you bring your problem to us. So when we do Dokusan, we do it usually on Sunday mornings. I didn't want to do it this morning.
Yeah.
But the meditation was just too good this morning. In the middle period, we offer Dokusan. You bring the question, and then I try, or if I'm not there, whoever the senior teacher is that day tries to respond to your koan or your logic or the riddle that you're bringing to the table.
Mm.
And in the Renzai practice, it's the other way. You're assigned a koan.
Yeah, that's
You
what
have
I've
to
heard.
solve it.
Yeah, yeah.
But our pedagogy is different. It's more related to your experience, Buddha experience on the cushion. The Dharma, including the dialogue, is meant to support that. And Sangha practice is meant to provide a context where you can come for this kind of practice and not be distracted by other stuff going on.
Yeah. There's also this notion that like understanding anything kind of works in levels, right? When you first learn a language or a musical instrument or how to sit zazen, you understand it in a very basic sense. Like you've been taught sort of the basic instructions and the technique of how to do it, and you can replicate that, you can mimic it. But then as you become more sophisticated, the understanding becomes more subtle, and I think involves things that like weren't even apparent to you when you were first studying it. I think it's the same with the Dharma. So when we talk about like the Four Noble Truths, or the paramitas or any of these kind of concepts, there's sort of the like rote memorization way that you understand it, which is just trying to remember which Sanskrit word maps to which concept. But then there's sort of deeper levels of understanding that I suppose come with more advanced study and insight.
And like with music, art, dance, any other science, repetition.
Yeah.
Repetition is the key. There's no actual absolute repetition. It's never the same twice, but just you don't get strong by doing one push-up.
Yeah.
So Len.
Also wanting to build off that point, the question that you asked about theory and how I've kind of changed with that is that the theory is sitting.
Interesting.
The theory is sitting. Everything else I read is more I'd say it's more behavioral change and like we almost say motivation.
Right.
So it helps you see how other people have approached this practice. But ultimately, for me, this entire practice is centered around sitting.
Yeah.
In the middle.
I like that. And that's one of the things that really drew me to Zen in the beginning was just how practical it is, right? Like, for the most part, a lot of Zen teachers actually encourage you not to read books and go out and confuse yourself with other people's interpretations because you might just cause yourself more problems. But if you sit and you adopt the right posture and the right intent when you're doing Zazen, it's like most of what you would need to learn might come to you eventually. It's just that to Sensei's point, the Dharma can be helpful for like kind of unblocking you, or if you're stuck on a particular thing, right? It's like troubleshooting.
And the athletic is model is another good analogy. If the athlete is willing to do the work, a little coaching will help, can help. But if the athlete is not willing to do the work, no amount of coaching is going to help.
Right.
So the whole history of Zen has been dependent upon the student, not the teacher. And the student has to be sincere, has to be driven, has to be coming to the teacher with a sincere attitude. And then however the teacher responds could be helpful. Just as in music, you have people coaching you in all the other areas. It's very similar to that.
Yeah.
We go astray when the teacher gets a big head about it. And the student gets confused.
Right.
So anything else, John, online from you? You're our only online person today. That's unusual.
I'll just say that was fantastic doing the interview on the spot. Well done.
Thank you.
So let's close with the 4 vows. Anything else you want to say before we close?
No, I just want to thank everyone again for their patience and listening.
Great. O
Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Those two.
That's two.
Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it.
Apparently, in the old days, in the oral tradition, if you said things 3 times, it meant you really meant it. You only said it once or twice.
I like that. Well, it's the point about repetition again.
Yeah.
That helps memorize. So.
Yeah. Thank you for your patience in listening. I think we break now and have a lunch break.
Yeah.
Too bad.